We are talking Arizona Cardinals football on the Our Lads Football Network, Our Lads Football YouTube channel. And when we're talking about the Arizona Cardinals, Jess Root is joining us. As you can see there, editor, Cards Wire. We'll have links in the description so you can check out all of Jess's work, where you could find him, both regular content, podcasts, and such. Jess, how's it going?
Going pretty good. It wasn't, for the Cardinals, it was up and down. Big picture, they are right about where even most best case scenario people had them. They're finished with 7 or 8 wins. Back in May, I predicted they go 8 and 9, but that 6 and 4 when they were leading the division had people hopeful, and it didn't work out.
Yeah,
it didn't work out.
Yeah, that was the thing that was really interesting about the way the season unfolded, because the start was so good and they had big road wins, and you just felt when they had that lead, which just seems like a second ago, that, hey, this is their opportunity. This is, the Rams are down, Niners are down, and then it just kind of fell apart. Was there like a specific reason? Do you blame the coaches the most? Do you blame any specific injuries? Do you blame players? What was the single biggest reason why things did not work out for the team?
Well, it was inconsistency. Statistically, you can look at Kyler Murray because, he had 3 turnovers in the first 10 games and he threw 8 interceptions in the last 6. But you look at the interception, you look statistically, Kyler was a more reckless quarterback. He was more careless. That wasn't the case if you look on a case by case why the interceptions happened, but it was a case of they had a chance. They needed to win one of the Seattle games.
Oh yeah,
and that was basically it. When they came out of the bye, when they were out rolling, they just stopped doing that. They stopped finishing the way they could. That they had Seattle, Minnesota, Seattle. All they needed to do was win one of those games and beat Carolina, and they'd be late in the division right now. And ultimately, the role they were on, they stopped executing as well. It was a number of things. They had a couple of terrible defensive games when they had been playing better defensively.
Yep.
Offensively, they stopped scoring as well. They were super inconsistent. There were games when they played well enough to, like that Rams game, they had almost 400 yards of offense. They should have won that game. You hold a team to 13 points, you have nearly 400 yards of offense. Yes. You should win that game. And they also had injuries down the stretch. They lost both their tackles. James Conner got banged up, and so it was they were holding on because they were playing well as a team. They've suffered a lot of injuries this year, not to the extent as the Detroit Lions, but they have 2 starting defensive linemen on IR. They have 3 starting offensive linemen on IR. One of their most talented pass rusher they lost before the season even started, and then their sack leader at the time, one of the starters, Dennis Gardeck, also was lost for the season early on in the year. And so it was kind of just by attrition. And then they stopped. They had this role, and then they couldn't stop the bleeding after that. And then ultimately, and it's really the only loss. They've only the one bad loss was to Carolina, because 6 of their 9 losses have come to teams who are right now in the postseason.
Yeah, there's definitely room for optimism based on year 1 to year 2, Jonathan Gannon. Are there any other coaches, though, on the staff that you believe key coaches, jobs who might be in jeopardy?
While you probably, fan base analysts would probably like them to see move in a different direction offensively. So you could look at Drew Petzing, offensive coordinator, Drew Terrell, their receivers coach and passing coordinator. That said, based on what I see from Jonathan Gannon, I don't think there will be any changes other than contractual.
Okay.
I would not expect there to be any major changes in this staff. I would be surprised.
Okay. Let's talk about free agency. So, which free agents do you believe the team is going to try and resign, and which ones do you think they're going to let go? Taking a look myself at the list, it looks like I mean, it does look like there's a whole lot of
their biggest ones they took care of already. They extended Yelda Froholt, their center. They extended Zaven Collins. They extended Buda Baker. Those were kind of the guys that you're like, okay, we got to take care of that. Jonah Williams is signed through another season. Matt Prater, kicker, I doubt he comes back. He could have come back from injured reserve this week. They're not going to. And Chad Ryland, they actually, when they picked him up, they signed him for 2 years. And it looks like they are moving on from the 40-year-old Prater. So I don't think they'll bring him back. Will Hernandez would be a guy to target, but I don't know where when he was lost for the season for his knee, I'm not sure how serious that was. It was season ending. I don't know if it was an ACL. Where he is in the offseason will affect that. The one guy I'm surprised I haven't seen an extension for yet, and probably will become a priority is Kaiser White. Their Mike backer, they're big inside linebacker, the coach on the field, really close with Jonathan Gannon. So they did sign Mac Wilson. He could probably fill that role calling the defense, and they have guys, and they have a young guy in Owen Papo that they drafted last year out of the 5th round, extremely athletic, who could probably put into place. But based on the way they've handled the contracts for their key leaders on and off the field, I would expect Kaiser White to be re-signed.
Okay, so you think White then you think he's a valuable player on the team?
Yes.
So and by the way, that means that you do not you don't fall into any of this PFF stuff that he had a bad year.
He wasn't as, I mean, he didn't produce. I have a tough time with some of the ratings on PFF.
Sure, absolutely.
But like, he is the heartbeat of that defense in the middle of the field. And last year he was really good. He has not had the ball hawking. He hasn't gotten his hand on the ball as much. He's been a volume tackler, but I'm not sure where he's at tackle wise, but I guess he is getting close to that at age 28. They could move on from him. I don't know if they would want to. Another guy that I'm sure they're going to want to re-sign is Baron Browning, the young defensive, the edge guy that they traded for. He's going to be a free agent. He's had 2 sacks since he came over. I'm sure he'll be a priority, but I don't think he's going to command big money. I know he would like to make big money because he had a decent year last season. But I would expect him to probably get something in the range that Zaven Collins got before the year started.
And that makes a lot of sense, especially since you traded for him, and he's a pass rusher, and those guys don't come around very often. So
they do have BJ Ojulari coming back, their 2nd-round pick from last year, coming off an ACL, and they were really, really excited about him this year. We'll have to see next year, though.
Yeah, there's a bunch of guys down here we'll go through, including BJ. So are there any? All right, so that means you believe that White, more than likely, they're going to try to bring him back. Browning is a priority. Again, Hernandez. If they don't bring back Hernandez, is there a big hole?
Well, at one position, they have their 3rd-round pick this year, Isaiah Adams, who eventually he started down the stretch, and he replaced Tristan Colon, journeyman, who had been starting there, and he started the rest of the season. So they drafted Isaiah Adams this last year in the 3rd round. I think they probably will lean on him, but that does leave one of the guard positions because Evan Brown is also a free agent. I don't know, they've gone kind of the 1-year route, so they'll probably sign somebody in free agency. I don't know if they'll make it a priority to bring back Brown or to bring back Hernandez, but that will be one of the positions of priority, is the offensive line interior.
Okay, because Brown is also a free agent. So you're guessing that what do you think? Is there a chance they both get signed, or you think only one of them?
I would guess only one of them.
Okay.
And like I would say they would probably put Hernandez ahead of Brown because Hernandez is their most physical lineman on the squad. But again, his knee, where he is at in the offseason, that will impact greatly how they feel about him, I think.
Okay. And then anybody else or just regular guys? Well, Gardeck. How about Gardeck?
Gardeck, he's a team leader. Unless he comes back, I don't think he'll get the that is an interesting one because he's a plus special teams player and can give you some pass rush, but he's far better as a package player than as an every down player. At his age, I think they might let him age out of their priority, but it wouldn't surprise me. I don't think it'll be unless he's going to come back on a 1-year minimum deal or something more, 2-year cheap. Because he got, I think it was 3 years and $12 million when he got his last deal, and it was more expensive than you want for a special teams guy, but because he gives you a little bit of upside in pass rush, that's something that's worth it. So because of that, because I've got Zaven, they're going to bring back Browning. They've got BJ Ojulari coming back. It's going to be a tough spot to find a place for Gardeck on the roster.
Okay. How about, and by the way, as far as the defensive linemen, let's see, Collier, Lopez, Tonga, and Jones. Those are the free agents up front. Are any of them a priority?
Priority, I think Collier they'll try to bring back because their big dogs are on injured reserve. They've got Justin Jones and Bilal Nichols, and then they drafted Darius Robinson in the first round. So I don't think they're going to make a concerted effort to make big contracts to guys like Roy Lopez or to LJ Collier, but I believe they would like any of those guys back. Okay. Lopez, who's been a very solid, not great, but solid nose tackle for them in the 2-down situations.
Okay. Beacham, by the way, he's getting up there in age. Is he still valuable as a backup? Or
still valuable? It depends on whether he wants to play. From everything I've heard from Beacham, he wants to play until the wheels fall off. Okay. And so, and I think it will depend on situation. Like I think he's gonna test because when he re-signed on a 2-year deal last year, and it was about money and role, and he accepted a backup role, but they paid him. They gave him a little bit of security. They gave him a 2-year deal. Okay. I think if somewhere you can find that, he ended up being a very valuable part of the team this year because he ended up starting half the season at right tackle and has had to finish the season at left tackle and has played fine. Like he wasn't great, but he was not a liability at all. But you do know at a guy at his age, what is he, 34 years old now? The wheels can fall off at any moment.
Yeah. He's up to 35 now, so he'll be 36 next season.
He'll be lucky to get he'll get a 1-year deal somewhere. Yeah. He'll get a 1-year deal somewhere.
Especially at tackle.
Yeah. I mean, so he might not, and he might not get a contract till July.
Sure.
But he'll end up somewhere, whether that's here or whether that's somewhere else. And the Cardinals did draft a tackle, Christian Jones out in the fifth round out of Texas. I do not know where because he was active he was starting his season on injured reserve. He'd been inactive until last week and got his first NFL action ever played. 3 snaps he got 6 total snaps. I think 3 as a jumbo as a tackle eligible and 3 just doing a series at right tackle. I don't know what they think in him. So I could see Beacham come back. I don't think he'll be a priority because they do have their starters, but they could use some experience in their depth.
Okay. How about receiver? Dortch and Jones. Pascal's also a free agent. Dortch was the one that there was some talk about maybe he was going to get more opportunities than ever before, and this was going to be his chance, but nothing really happened.
No, and he is what he is. He's good in space. He's a good gadget player, but didn't make as many plays as. So I believe he'll still only be a restricted free agent, but I don't think he'll get a restricted tender. Zay, that's an interesting one because he's barely been used. They started giving him more playing time than Dortch because they've been using Harrison and Michael Wilson more inside, and then Zay can give them the size outside still. And Kyler loves Dortch, and I just don't see him as a priority. I could see him back. Pascal, he's special teams, and he's a special teams glue guy. Maybe. I mean, he's been with Jonathan Gannon on his squad since Indy, because he followed Gannon to Philadelphia and followed Gannon here to Arizona. So it just depends on whether I guess in some cases, basically if their special teams coordinator Jeff Rogers still wants him back and still has a role for him.
Okay. Michael Carter, who's going to be seeing even more time, it looks like, this week. I mean, he looks like a solid number 3 running back. Is that base? I mean, I can't imagine he's going to cost much. So again, just another player that probably comes back. Do you think?
He could. He might search for somewhere that it gives him more of an opportunity,
like a second string kind of deal.
Because Connor's going to be back. They re-signed him for 2 years. If I didn't mention James Conner, they extended James Conner too. Forgot to mention that. They have Trey Benson as their number 2 third-round pick, and they love Amari DeMarcado. They're the last year's undrafted kid out as their third down back. He does really good on 3rd and 4th downs. He's bigger than Carter. Carter is a more dynamic run, though DeMarcado's had some really splashy plays himself. DeMarcado is a better third down back than Michael Carter. Trey Benson has more potential as a backup to, potential starter than Carter. Carter loves it here and was, braved out the practice squad all year. If he has an opportunity somewhere else, I'm sure he will jump at that opportunity. But the Cardinals would love to have him back, but it'll probably be in a competitive scenario where he might end up as not making the roster again.
One player that didn't get a lot of time, but the kid from Duke, the 6th round pick,
DeMcCagey.
Yeah, did he show anything? Is he somebody that could develop, or is he just a role player at best?
He's a role player at best. He's pretty good. Like, he's a core special teamer. He does really well on special teams, and he has when he's in there in the game, you will see him because he is a pretty good run defender and will disrupt time to time. But he's clearly not super consistent about how he handles the defensive side of the ball in practice, because he hasn't been consistently active this season.
Okay.
They like him, but adding Browning, they had Julian Okwara. They're outside backers, so like DeMcCagey and Okwara have not been consistently active all season. It's like one or the other. When they brought Browning on, that it kind of added to that. And so DeMcCagey, it definitely won't be a priority. He's a decent special teams player and solid depth from the edge.
And speaking of Okwara,
he's just a guy. He's just a guy.
Okay, that's what I figured. All right. So, by the way, Pilardi, because actually all 3 main special teams players in the kicking role, place kicker, punter, long snapper, all are free agents. So
Gillikin is their main punter, and
so that's right. That's right. Because now was Gillikin. He was the number 1 guy overall.
Yeah, he got hurt.
He got hurt.
He got hurt. They signed Pilardi, and Gillikin signed through another year. Yeah, Prater's a free agent, and it looks like they're moving on to Ryland. And then Aaron Brewer is a free agent, although as long as he wants to play, I'm pretty sure that the Cardinals will want him back because he gives them great consistency from the position. They'll probably bring in a young long snapper like they did last offseason.
Okay.
We'll see how that goes, but I would not be surprised to see Brewers come back for another year. I think he's played the last 2 years on 1-year deals and come back. I think he's 34, 33. I'm not gonna. I see he's in his 30s. He's getting up there. He's not as old as Prater, but he's at that point. I think he's been with the team. This is its 8th year as the long snapper. So
yeah, he'll be 35 when the season begins next season. So did Ryland do enough to definitely be the guy, or will he be the number one in camp, you think? And maybe they add a guy and it could be anybody. Do you think there's a possibility they add even someone through the draft, or do they think Ryland are they confident enough that Ryland's the guy and then they'll just bring in some competition?
I don't know how confident that, like, he's been good this year and Pro Bowl alternate. He was named a Pro Bowl alternate. He's 26 of 30 on field goals, 21 of 22 on extra point attempts. He's got leg. He hit a 58-yarder. He's clutch. He hit 3 game-winning field goals in the last minute of a game. I don't know if they're banking on him being the guy, but when they signed him through next year because he is in that because it wouldn't have mattered. Like, even if they'd signed him just for 1 year, he would have been exclusive rights anyway. I would anticipate that they bring in competition. I just don't think that they're going to go out and spend money on competition. They might bring in a cheap veteran on a non-guaranteed deal, or just bring in another young guy similar to Ryland to compete with him in the offseason.
It makes sense. I mean, there are enough bad kickers in the league and inconsistent kickers that I'm sure that Arizona is saying this is the least of our worries, is this guy. Okay. Let's talk about the top 5 needs. It's up to you if you want to do them in order, or you could just spit them out there and then reorder them when you're done. I'll let you handle that. So let's go over Arizona's top 5 needs as they head into the offseason. And obviously, whatever they can't figure out in free agency, they will try to get in the draft. So what do you want to start with?
Edge.
100%. And is edge their number 1?
I would say absolutely. It is okay. I'm going to say guard and edge are pretty even. Guard and edge are pretty, but I would put edge ahead because guard it's a slightly lower tier in terms of a premium position.
It is correct. Yes, I agree.
And so they've got Zaven, but like they have no real pass rush threats. Maybe Ojulari. But we don't know that because we saw glimpses of it as a rookie and he didn't play this year. So 100% you want an impact pass rusher off the edge.
Yeah, it's Collins. Tell me how he's been, because I remember when he came out, I was a big fan. I thought he was going to have a really good career. He's been there now a few years. I know his roles have changed a little bit, but what does he do best now?
He does a little of everything.
Okay.
And pass rushing happens to be the thing is his weakest part. He plays the run really well. He's athletic enough to drop in coverage and do the things that they run from that outside backer in that 3-4 scheme. They drop their guys into coverage frequently. He just doesn't. He's not a premier pass rusher. He plays with great effort. They love, like, the coaches love Collins. And so, like, he does lots of things. He's just not. It's nothing that shows up statistically to say he's a great player. He's a really solid player that can do a lot of things, but he's not flashy at any of them.
Yeah, I'm not sure if people realize this little tidbit here. I don't think they would have guessed that, but that's how good he was.
They love, like, when Steve Kine drafted him and they wanted to play inside backer, he looked like he was on the verge of being really great there. But Jonathan Gannon saw him and his size to be better as a versatile edge guy because he rushes from the edge. They rush him inside. They drop him in the coverage. He's great in run support. But none of those things Like none of those things, like when you don't put up sack numbers,
Yeah.
none of those things will catch anyone outside of the coaches.
Yeah.
Fans will just think, oh, he's a
Yeah.
bust.
Sure.
And the coaches absolutely love him.
All right. And then guard, what you're thinking is what's most likely going to happen is if they, again, like you said, probably go with either Brown or Hernandez. Again, Hernandez's injury is going to be
They
important to note.
might throw money at a guard.
And then they might throw
They
money.
might throw money at a guard.
And then if they do, then they probably, as long as they keep Brown or Hernandez, then they probably don't have to worry too much about the draft because they do have Isaiah Adams.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
And they've got John Gaines, so they've got some options there.
That's true.
But
yeah.
I would think that guard is going to be a priority. Like if you look, quarterback, they're like, depends on what you feel about Kyler, but they're fine at quarterback. Like you're not going to find Kyler's replacement in free agency. You're not going to be able to move Kyler either, really. You're not going to be able to draft a guy. You might draft a guy to replace Clayton Tune, who you think maybe could replace Kyler in a year. But in terms of priority, like you look at the offense, they're good at running back. Like you can always add a running back, but you're not going to go premium running back because you've got a 3rd round pick that you used this year. You've got money tied up in James Conner. Their tight end position is in great shape. You've got Marvin.
By the way,
Harrison.
Tip Ryman, did he play a whole lot?
He played a lot. As a blocking tight end. He had one bad game where he got all sorts of penalties, but he was a key part of their run game, and they really like what he has to offer. They could probably make a run at a receiver. I think it would be wise to go after a more productive receiver to pair with Marvin Harrison.
So Michael Wilson has not worked out.
Michael Wilson has worked out nicely. He has, but
he's not a number 2. He's not a high-end number 2.
They're passing. That's the thing. I have big questions about the passing scheme. I mean, and anyone who's your number 2 receiver is really going to be your number 3 receiver because you've got Marvin Harrison Jr., who's going to blossom. He's going to be an 80, 90 plus catch guy after this season. And Trey McBride's already a 100 catch guy. So your number 2 receiver is not a normal number 2 receiver.
True.
And that's why Michael Wilson, like I could see them going and getting someone more veteran. And maybe got that guy Zay Jones because he is in the system. Michael Wilson, what he does a lot of like Zaven Collins, but on the offensive side of the ball. He is a great fit in the locker room. You can count on him for big plays. He has had productive games, but he also doesn't command the ball. Like he's not going to be unhappy not getting the targets when Marvin and Trey are getting them. Could they go another direction at that position? Absolutely. But when it comes to the passing production, I've got questions about the passing scheme to begin with.
Okay. So right now you've got edge rusher and guard. Those are your top 2 needs. So what would you consider the other 3 most important needs for the team?
You can always go cornerback. They've got guys in place. They got Sean Murphy Bunting. They've got Max Melton. They've got Garrett Williams, who is on the verge of greatness, I believe. But I think you have to look at you have to look at receiver, the secondary receiver. You have to look at inside backer, and then you have to look at. Well,
you've got 5. So you've got corner, wide receiver number 2, and inside linebacker as your other 3.
So it's going to be either corner or safety. And the thing is, I don't think they're going to go out and get a safety. I think they're going to make a move at safety because they signed Buddha. I think they're going to move off of Jalen Thompson because I don't think you can have 20 plus million tied up in the cap in safeties on a defense that's not great. And they have a guy they drafted, Dadrian Taylor Demerson, Rabbit.
Yes.
He looks promising and could probably fill that Jalen Thompson role just fine. I see them making a move like that. Safety is not a need, but it's something they're going to make a move at because I don't think they're going to keep both Buddha and JT this next year. I don't think the money will allow it. Even though they've got cap room, I don't think cap resources will allow you to especially since JT didn't have. He was very all right this season. So and you can get all right for less money.
So then that means, and who knows, maybe this was part of their thinking too, because they again drafted the kid Taylor Demerson. So you're saying it's very possible that they save, I think, maybe $7 million I saw by letting Thompson go, and then Taylor Demerson maybe takes his place.
That's what I anticipate will probably happen. But like if you're going for top 5, we got edge, guard, receiver, inside backer, and then corner, because corner you can always address.
Okay. And as far as give me some other, Max Melton, where does he fit in? Does he, because you mentioned corner, so where does he fit in next season?
Well, he will hopefully be a starter. Okay. He played. So the Sean Murphy-Bunting's locked in. Garrett Williams is locked in. That other position, they spent a second-round pick on Melton, but he didn't play every down. He could be they could be, but you're gonna you want another starter level fourth corner, for depth.
Okay.
And they had that really nice match this year because they've had Star Thomas, who is an undrafted. Well, I guess they don't need if they like the growth of their cornerbacks, they might not need to address the cornerback position because they've got youth at the position. Star Thomas, second-year player. Garrett Williams, second-year player. Max Melton, rookie, and on top of Sean Murphy-Bunting, who still got under contract for 2 more years, and next year I think he's locked in for next year as well. So they might not need to do anything at cornerback necessarily.
Okay, all depends. And then, like you said, maybe because of all the youth, that's something they take care of in free agency with a veteran.
Yeah.
Okay. Now you mentioned, because what I want to do also is talk about players on the team that you think because you've already mentioned a few. And so I want to go over those. You talked about some of the players that maybe have been injured that can fill those roles. So, you can go to the RLS depth chart. And if you go to Arizona's depth chart page, you're looking down here and you're going, I see all these reserve guys. Well, I know who Trey Benson is. And I know a couple of these guys, but are any of these other players that are injured, are they filling the roles that are going to be regular contributors and starters up here on the depth chart? And if so, who are those players? And it doesn't have to necessarily be injured players, but it could also be some developing young talent that you think maybe they're ready to take the next step, just like we talked about at defensive back. So give me some other players that you think, first of all, besides some of the ones we already talked about, but just maybe reestablish the injured players here that are going to fill big roles for the team next season, or may fill, or are supposed to fill big roles for the team next season.
The biggest hope is that B.J. Ojulari can come back and be a solid pass rusher, but I don't know if you can bank on that. They do have their two biggest. They were their two of their splashiest moves in the offseason on the defensive interior of Bilal Nichols and Justin Jones. They will go back into that starting rotation, although one of them might get pushed behind Darius Robinson, first-round pick this year, who's played in the second half only. So the defensive line, they don't really need to make a big move. You can always add youth. So they got Darius Robinson, they got Justin Jones, they got Bilal Nichols. Those are going to be kind of your 3 starters. I bet Bilal, you can push him in at nose tackle right there because he's played the nose. Having those 3 as your starter.
How did Darius do?
He, statistically nothing there. He's got a sack. But he's been disruptive. It's been slow because he injured his calf the week before the season began, didn't play for basically 8 months and didn't practice for like 8 months. And so they love what they're seeing from him. It's just not showing up statistically right now.
Okay.
And so,
and by the way, you think Nichols and Jones
Yeah, they signed 3-year deals last year, so they
Okay.
will definitely be back this next season. And so you've got your starters, you've got Jones, you've got Nichols, you've got Robinson, and then after
Okay.
that, you're going to fill in depth. So I don't see them spending free agency money on the defensive interior in terms of big money like they did last year. They averaged, I think Nichols averaged $7 million a year. Justin Jones was $10 million a year. So they're not going to do that. They might draft it like if a big potential guy in the first or second round, always
Sure.
draft the best player.
Yeah.
That could be. I don't think the defensive line will be a major. They're not looking for starters on the defensive line this year. They're looking for depth.
Okay. What about? And we talked about Hernandez. So what about? So you got Jonah Williams and Paris Johnson. So talk about
Johnson,
those
he'll be
two
back.
injuries.
I believe Paris Johnson's injury is minor enough. Like it was going to push him out probably the rest of the season. He's on IR now. He'll be back next year. Jonah Williams, that's an interesting one. They signed him to a 2-year deal, but they can get out of it. They can get out of that deal. So it's a matter. And he missed half the season, and he injured the same knee twice. And so can you like he should, like when he played, he was good. Solid right tackle. Will they count on him next year? And that's the hard part. That's the hard part. He should be a starter. They haven't paid. They're paying him $15 million next year or whatever. Next year, he should be the starter opposite Paris Johnson. And then you put
And
yourself
what about
in
Christian
position.
Jones?
Christian Jones, 5th-round pick. He made his NFL debut last week.
So he was
played
injured
6
all year.
snaps. Yeah, he was injured half the year and inactive up until last week.
So injured half the year, inactive until
because he was playing
17.
behind. Because he was playing behind, playing behind Kelvin Beachum. You weren't going to make him active over Kelvin Beachum, who'd been starting, or is a guy you trust to play either position. And I don't think Christian Jones is quite at a place. Although, funny thing, Jackson Barton, who had been starting at right tackle the last 2 games for Jonah Williams, was in the locker room today with a walking boot on. So we might see Christian Jones starting this weekend in week 18. So I don't know.
I mean, why not? I mean, he's a rookie. Get him some playing time. So.
because though Nick Bosa is hurt, because if Nick Bosa's playing, then Kyler might die.
That's true. And Nick should not be playing. If I'm the 49ers, no way am I doing that. They've had enough injuries. Okay. So I think we've taken care of all of the injured players. Are there any young players? You mentioned one of them, the Auburn linebacker.
Yeah.
So it's just again on whether or not you believe he could fill a bigger role. And are there any other players, young players, that might be able to take that next step next year?
Well, I like I mentioned, Darius Robbins should be a starter next year. Max Melton could be a starter next year. Papo isn't, because he's really good in packages and does really well in special teams. Could he step into that second starting role? That depends on how much they really want Kaiser back, because they like Mac Wilson. He could move up into a greater role. I already mentioned Dadrian Taylor Demerson. And then of last year, and Tip Ryman's already filling a big role. Trey Benson's will have the same role he had last year. And so we're looking at Isaiah Adams moving into the starting lineup potentially, Max Melton moving into the starting lineup, Darius Robinson moving into the starting lineup. And I think those are the guys that you kind of count on in going into next year. And then Taylor Demerson's a maybe, depending on he's already playing in a lot of packages. It's just what they decide to do at that safety position, if they're going to keep both Buddha and Jalen Thompson.
Sounds like it was a productive draft. Not that we know yet if any of these players have yet. I mean, because none of them have really, jumped out and been like, wow, except of course Harrison, but that was the easy one.
Yeah.
But for you to say, hey, this guy could start, that guy could start, that's a good thing. That's what you want to hear. And what about Xavier Thomas, the only one you did not mention? Have you seen much of him?
He had a couple of games where he showed promise. He's literally the same age as Victor Demikeji. He was one of the COVID kids in the draft, so he enters already at age 24. He's good. if he can move up in the rotation, great. I don't expect him to be more than what he has been, which is rotational, sometimes active, sometimes not, especially when, you've got Zabin, you're going to re-sign Browning probably, and you're going to bring back B.J. Ojulari. So at best, he's number 4 in the edge rotation.
And you mentioned Mac Wilson. Are they happy with Mac Wilson as a starter?
They are. They're very happy with Mac because of all the things he can do inside, off the edge. He is so physical. he hits. He brings an Alabama mentality to the middle of that defense.
Okay, let's wrap up by first. Let me get the general layout. Again, the team is going to have about what, 90 million right now in cap space, roughly.
Something like that.
There's a lot of money they have.
That'll get eaten up. Actually, I haven't looked at the cap numbers because I know they just re-signed Buddha, so that'll go down. And then they got other guys, like if they've re-signed Kaiser, so they have a cap space.
They do.
Draft picks. Here's the thing: it says they have five picks. They're supposed to have a 7th round pick. They traded Cameron Thomas to the Chiefs for a 7th round pick. It didn't say conditional, but I don't find anywhere that lists that 7th round pick. So I'm trying to find out what happened to it, because when it was announced, it was not a conditional pick. It was Cameron Thomas to the Chiefs for what used to be the Jets' 7th round pick that the Chiefs got from the Jets. So I believe they're supposed to have a 7th round pick as well, though something's happened in the last, I don't know, either there's mistakes being made or there is something that happened that caused them to not get that pick from the Chiefs.
But the 5 picks, are they like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5?
Yeah, they're their first. They're their own picks for 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Yeah, it's
okay. And are there any players besides Jalen Thompson that they might want to save money on? Maybe Jonah Williams. You mentioned him.
Jonah Williams is a possibility. I think if you're talking potential cat casualties, that might be Jalen Thompson. And I think the other major one would be Jonah Williams. Everyone else that has a significant cap hit, their numbers are guaranteed for 2025.
Yeah, and I don't see anyone else here that has enough money anyway that it would be that big of a deal. So I think we've hit the nail on the head with those. Okay, so again, just in closing with the top needs, we're going to go with edge rusher and offensive guard with the top 2 picks. And what you're saying is maybe edge rusher 1A, OJ, not 2 picks, but top 2 needs, because again, we're free agency right now and the draft. So 1A and 1B. And then we've got wide receiver number 2 would be 3, inside linebacker 4, and a cornerback, maybe someone like you're thinking like a number 3, 4 type of guy, would be like the 5th out of the top 5 needs.
Yes.
Awesome. Jess, tell us a little bit about how you cover the team. And again, we're going to have links in the description for anybody that wants to go there and follow you. What do you have for them?
My written content, I wrote a bunch, is over on cardswire.com, which is one of the USA Today NFL Wire sites. My spoken content you can find on any podcast platform. It's the Rise Up Sea Red podcast. I like to call it the best hour of Cardinals talk on the web. You'll be the judge of that. On Twitter/X, I will never call it exclusively X. Senor Jessroot, SENOR, Jessroot, JESSROOT.
Jess, I really appreciate it. It's always awesome to get the skinny, especially on teams like Arizona. Very hard to find out what goes on with some of these teams that don't get the national exposure, especially on the West Coast. So it's great for me to have someone like you that I can turn to and educate me and our viewers to what's happening with the Arizona Cardinals. So we appreciate that. And sorry about your Arizona State Sun Devils. Really, really tough. I think they did earn a lot of praise, a lot of maybe new fans. The gutsy performance. Everybody's going to be taking a look at Mr. Scatterboo.
Cam Scatterboo, baby. Cam Scatterboo. I don't know how he translates to the pros. I'll have to look at his athletic numbers. He's got the size. He's got the skill set. He does everything on the field right. I hope he comes across like at the Senior Bowl looking good. I hope he gets in and back to the
big.
combine.
Yes.
I know he is locked into the Senior Bowl. I want him to see get that combine invite, and I'm hoping to see that he can run that 40 in at minimum low 4.5s, high 4.4s, and that way you've got the
Yes.
requisite speed, because he does have the pass catching skills. His size is fine. His balance is great. Arizona State runners, we've had really good like college running backs, productive running backs over the last several years, and they've never been more than solid special teams guys in the pros at best. And so it'd be really nice to see Cam get the next be something more than that, the next level.
Well, the White for
oh, that's right, Rashad White's pretty good. Yeah, okay,
yes.
Rashad White, he's the recent one. Benjamin kind of flamed out. DJ Foster was a really good special teams player for a long time. Yeah. Like I've been like I was telling you offline, I've been a season ticket holder from ASU since 2007. I went to Arizona State. I have 2 kids. I have one graduate and one soon to be graduate from Arizona State.
That's awesome.
My mother graduated from Arizona State, so
well, that's great. Yeah. That's it's great when that happens, and then you see your football team starting to turn out like this. I mean, Dillingham is like all the praise I'm sure he deserves, and they got to fix that 4th and 13 defensive scheme. But as soon as they do that, by the way, Scattaboo, it's interesting because we've been kind of talking about it off like in our weekly meetings on our lads about, hey, where do you think he goes? But talking to the scouts about it. And originally, like this is about a month ago, they're pretty much, some of them actually were kind of comparing him to the kid from Missouri last year, the walk-on that had big year, put up big numbers, but he's not an NFL guy. But that was a month ago. And then and then he has then he plays in the Big 12 championship game. And then I was like, are you sure he's not a little bit better than that? He seems to have a little bit better of this, a little bit.
Balance is so incredible.
Yeah, he seems better than that. And then we saw that again the other day. It's like, if anybody has moved up, maybe even 3 or 4 rounds just in the past month, you would have to think it's him. Because he did it again. I mean, look, he did it against Texas, one of the top defensive teams in the college football. That should mean something, shouldn't it?
He out Taysom Hill, but is an actual running back. Taysom Hill, who was a decent college quarterback.
I like that one. Yes.
But he does a little bit of everything like Taysom Hill can, only he's a legitimate running back.
Absolutely. I like that one because I think that's what he's going to be. He's not going to be that running back. You're going to go, all right, let's draft him to be our number 1 guy, and he's just going to be our number 1 the way every other number 1 on our team is. No, you bring him in to kind of be that special guy that you can do a whole lot with, that you have an offensive coordinator that's got some really interesting schemes in his head that, I want that guy on my team. He could do so many things that I've been waiting to, fill that role on this team. And that's what it's all about too in the draft, is finding the right spot. And let's hope he does. Really solid kid.
100%.
Great story.
Agree with that.
Jess, by the way, is Arizona State, do you know what their home games are like next year? Do you know who you're going to see coming into town? Anybody special?
I haven't looked at the schedule yet.
Okay.
I haven't looked at the schedule. I've looked at it, but that was back. I think we play. Shoot, I'm not going to even try to guess. Nick, right now. I can look it up. Like I go to ASU games. That I thank you. Okay, because I like during Cardinal season, I know everything about the Cardinals. Okay. I fan out for the Sun Devils, and then I let the schedule kind of to hit me. Once August comes around.
Yeah, because that's what I do. I look and then I'll forget, and then I totally I have to. It's like 2 months later. I'm like, what was that schedule again? What I got to refamiliarize myself with it. It looks actually like the home games are going to be, or at least the home games are all going to be pretty similar to last year regarding most of them that make any like a fan draw are just going to be the conference teams, because you've got Texas State at home.
Yeah,
which is a good Sun Belt team, but that's it.
Yeah, they had the home and home. They played Texas State this year on the road,
and now they're going to Mississippi State, so that's on the road.
They beat the team. Yeah,
Yeah, and everybody else is at this point in time just a conference team.
Conference games. And was
Yeah,
there
so they have
openers?
conference
Is
games
it
against
NAU?
West Virginia, Houston, TCU, Texas Tech, Arizona. So
So Houston and TCU are new. We haven't played them yet. So
yeah, so but that's it. And then the highlight road games are Utah, Iowa State, Colorado, Baylor. Those are some tough road games. Those teams, but that was this year. The Big 12 was so crazy that anybody who thinks they can predict what's going to happen in the Big 12
what's
next
so
year.
wild was to see all the new teams in their conferences winning or nearly winning those conferences. That was really fun to. Well, I mean, for me, it was incredible. This is as someone who's followed ASU football since I was in college, starting in the fall of '95. So I was in college when Jake Plummer was there. That was a fun season. That season and this season are the two wow seasons we've ever had. And then a lot of the other ones have just been a bunch of hopefully hope with disappointment, pretty good, but never great. And then more recently, just a bunch of garbage.
Yeah, because they had that period. Who was the coach at Graham? They had that period where it looked like, oh, this is a really good coach and this is a really good team. And then it just
could quite get over the hump.
It just went away. And it's amazing how quickly that happened. But I think, and look, I believe in this, and I don't know, maybe you guys, you're more familiar with the program, but I've always thought that this is a great potential program, like real estate program, because I mean, if you're a kid at that age and you can sell them on Arizona State, like the scenery and the atmosphere and the, I mean, I'm just sorry. I'm just going to say it. The women are gorgeous. That
you don't have to sell me on that.
That at that age, it has to be an impact.
Oh, and so, yes. The issue is that it has been the football program has not been, the sleeping giant that we've been talking about for 30 years.
Yeah.
The football program has not been treated like a big time program, and it takes major money.
True.
It takes major donors, and it takes big money in the NIL now to do that. And so it's for them to be able to sustain what they started, which is what's been the issue, is that you'll have one great season every 5 to 6 years. For this place to be a football powerhouse in the Big Ten, they have to commit more to the program, like Big Ten programs do. Can they? I think it's possible.
Because like you said, the NIL and that money, that wherever it's going to come from, that's everything nowadays. So if you've got enough of those donors, then anything is possible.
I think their new athletic director understands more. Their previous athletic director built all the ASU athletics is really good outside of the biggest sports.
Wow.
They are a really good athletic program for hockey, for wrestling, for women's sports. There's a lot of great things that don't get any notoriety, but it's a really good program athletic. But I believe that their new athletic director, Gramersini, understands the need to make their biggest programs bigger and not just say, hey, Olympic sports. And be a second tier athletic program across and I don't want to diminish those other ones because that is important, especially for the athletes who are in it.
Yes.
But like when it comes to college football, if you're not relevant in college football or in college basketball, you're really not much in terms of an athletic program.
And are they going to have any better of a team? I know they've already played a bunch of games, but the basketball team this year just looks like again, you just don't know.
The best we get out of ASU basketball is usually maybe tournaments.
Yeah.
Like maybe half a dozen tournament appearances in my lifetime. I don't know.
Well, that's another one, but I guess a story for another day. Again, Jess, I appreciate it. Thank you very much. And we'll look forward to talking to you again, hopefully on the other side of the draft, unless, of course, there's some big story that comes out between now and then, and we have to get your take on it. But if not, then we look forward to talking to you on the other side of the draft. And then, of course, hopefully to preview the 2025 season, which I just hope that interview comes a lot faster than anybody can imagine.
It's so much.
It is. So but that's so great about the NFL. It's a good thing about teams that don't have successful seasons or don't go to the postseason is we have so much to look forward to, especially when you have a lot of cap space like the Cardinals, that there's a lot of hope that, maybe do something to build our team and be the team next year.
Yeah.
So that's what's fun about the NFL. That's why we love it.
Hey, if the Vikings to do it, if Sam Darnold can do it, hey, anyone can do it.
There you go. I like we love you too, Sam. Don't worry about it. All right, Jess, thank you very much. I'll talk to you after the draft.
Thanks, man.